Alright guys, we're gonna start this class. I'm hoping that everyone is doing good and you are all well in health. So today we're gonna have factorization of square trinomials with signs. What is that all about? Okay, we have, for example, this trinomial, which, as you can see, the bigger degree is 2, which is a square, so that makes it a square trinomial. It's not perfect though, as you can see here, because when you factorize it, you get different signs. You get different numbers. Okay, now here we have with signs, so that's what we're going to talk about today. How do we get the factorization of this square trinomial that has a negative here, a big negative? What do we do? Okay, so the first thing you need to do is pretty much the same as before. You gotta get all the combinations of numbers that when you multiply them, you get a 6. What are those numbers? Let's think about them. Let's think about those numbers. Okay, you guys pretty much know them. They popped up into your head, I hope. And we have, for example, 3 and 2. 3 times 2 is 6. That's great. And 1 times 6, that's 6 also. That's great. We don't have any more combinations. We're going to stick with them. Okay, you can also think about putting them in a different order, but that doesn't really matter. That's not going to add anything, okay? The order doesn't matter in this case for when we multiply, of course. Alright, something else that you need to remember, something that is very important for this explanation is going to be sign number multiplication. What do you do when you have signed numbers? So for example, we have here different signs give you a negative. Same signs give you a positive. That's all you have to remember about sign number multiplication. We're going to be needing this for this discussion. So you have to have that right there in your mind. Okay, what about addition? Okay, that thing also have it there in your head. Keep it close to you. You're going to be needing this. Okay, so when you have different signs, remember that? Coming back to your memory. Are you remembering it, guys? Different signs give you a negative. I'm sorry, different signs, you gotta subtract. 10 minus 7, it's 3. Okay, and then 10 minus 7, it's also 3. But remember that you put the sign of the bigger number. Here, who is bigger, the 10 or the 7? Oh, it's 10, right? That sign that the 10 has is a negative, so that sign goes in the answer. It's going to be negative 3. Now we go to this one, 10 and 7. Different signs. Subtract. It's 3. Who is bigger? It's the 10. The 10 is positive. Answer is positive. Alright? And what happens when you have both of them to be negatives? Well, you gotta add them. 10 and 7, you get negative 17. Alright? Both negatives, the answer has to be also negative. Both are positives, answer has to be positive. That's regular vanilla addition. Okay, what's next? What do we do now? Okay, so we have this combination of numbers, but of course, when you add them, when you put them together, it's not going to be negative 5, right? Because that's going to be the next step. You got to select the combination, then when you put them together, you add them, it gives you negative 5. So of course, as we saw before, when you have two positive numbers, it's not going to give you a negative. Even this one, 1 plus 6, it's not negative 5. No, it's not. Okay, so we have to go into sign number territory, and here it is. So we have here all the combinations of the numbers 3 and 2, and I placed signed combinations. So here we have the combination with when both of them are positives, and here when you have both of them to be negatives, and here when one of them is the negative and the other one is the positive, and here when the smaller number is the negative. And also for 1 and 6, it's the same deal. Okay, so now we're going to ask ourselves, which of these combinations give you -5? Okay, so of course it's the first one, right? So -3 and -2, when you add them, when you put them together, it's -5. So that's going to be our lead hint. But I'm going to do also the other combination so that you can see that you don't get that -5. Okay, let's go to the next one. -3 and +2, when you put them together, it's -1. Why is it -1? Because you gotta subtract them. 3 minus 2 is 1. And then you put the sign of the bigger number. Which one is the biggest? It's the 3. So you get, and that 3, is it negative? Yes, it is. So you put a negative there. Okay, let's go to the next combination, which is this one. 3 and -2. When you put them together, when you add them, that's what we're doing here, right here, you get a +1. Of course, let me just remind you that when you multiply them, yes, you do get a 6. It's going to be a -6, okay? Okay, I'm going to do the same thing for the next one. So when you add -1 and -6, it's -7. It's not -5. So this is discarded. Okay, let's go to this one. -1 and +6. That gives you +5. And then we go to the next one, and it's 1 and -6 gives us -5, because you subtract 6 minus 1 gives you 5. You put the sign of the bigger number. Which one is bigger? It's the 6. It's negative. It's -5. Okay, and then you may be asking yourself, or you could be asking me, you would be wanting to ask me in the class. If we were in the class, you would raise your hand and you would be asking me right now in this moment, well, we got a -5 there, which is what we're looking for. But you may be like, teacher, this other combination also gives us the -5. Yes, good observation. But when you multiply +1 and -6, right here, +1 and -6, you get a -6, not a +6, which is what you have here. That is not going to be, well, part of your answer. Okay, what's going to be next? What do we do next? You may be asking me, what's the answer then? What do we do? Is this it? Do we have to do all this table? No, this table is just for explaining this. Your answer has to be right there. That's it. That's your answer. -3 and -2 are going to be part of your two binomials that when you multiply them give you this result. And we can do the check to see if this is true, but I'm going to omit it because you guys already know how to do this. Okay, so this is going to be the factorization of this trinomial. We're done. That's your answer and you're set. You're correct. Alright, before I give you the exercises, I'm gonna see some more examples. Here's another example. What's the factorization for this one? Pretty easy. Well, we saw that in the previous class. It's going to be this, of course, because both of them are positives. You see the sign here, it's positive. This one is positive. It's the previous class. I'm just reminding you something here that you should know. 3 plus 2 is going to be 5. 3 times 2 is going to be 6. And you're done. Okay, what about this one? Okay, remember, we got to find the two numbers that when you multiply them gives you -6. And when you add them gives you +1. And just for your convenience, I'm going to bring again that little table that I made for the previous problem. Okay, so when you multiply, it has to be -6. So all of these combinations give us -6, except this one, except +2 and +3 and +1 and positive. They're not going to give you -6. So we're not going to use these two combinations are already discarded. So I'm going to go over here. Okay, what about -3 and -2? Well, we saw that that's not going to be it, because when you add them, you get -5. But here, I gotta get a positive 1. Okay, so that's not it. Let's go to the next one. Oh, you see this one, 3 and negative 2. 3 times negative 2, that's gonna be negative 6. That's great. And when you subtract them, 3 and 2, 3 minus 2 gives you positive 1. Ah, that's what we have right here. That's great. So this one, it's not going to be the answer because negative 3 and positive 2, you got to subtract, you get 1, but you put the sign of the bigger one, the bigger number, which is in this case the negative 3. So it's negative, the answer is going to be negative. That's not what we're looking for. This is going to be the good one. Okay, so that means that the answer has to be this. That's going to be the factorization for this square trinomial. Because when you multiply them, you get a negative 6. And when you subtract these two numbers, or when you do positive 3 plus negative 2, you get positive 1. That's great. Let's go to the next one. Okay, here's the other case. We have a negative 6. You gotta multiply two numbers that when you you gotta multiply two numbers that give you negative 6. Here they are, all the combinations. And when you subtract or add, give you 1 negative. Okay, so which one of these will give you negative 1? Okay, let's see. Oh, of course it's going to be this one. Negative 3 and positive 2 gives us negative 1. That's great. So the negative 1, here it is. Therefore, the factorization has to be negative 3 and positive 2. Okay, so here's another one. Of course, we got that result. We have negative 3 and positive 2. And here's another one, negative 5. We have x squared and minus 5x plus 6. What's going to be the result? What's going to be the factorization? Well, of course, we've got to find the two numbers that when you multiply them gives you 6. And when you add them gives you negative 5. Okay, so that's going to be this case, right? That's what we have here. I just placed it. We went through that problem already, but I just placed it here so that you guys could see the pattern. I don't know if you've seen it. As you can see, all of the results have x plus 3 and x plus 2, or 3 and 2, sorry. This one has 3 and 2, this one has 3 and 2, this one has 3 and 2. Have you seen that? It has also the x, of course. That's a big pattern. But there's something bigger here. There are patterns everywhere in mathematics, and if you see them, they're going to help you out a lot. Okay, so here's the pattern. I don't know if you've noticed, but when the last number is positive, you see this one's positive, this one's also positive. Notice here the pattern that was formed with the signs of your factorization. This one's positive and this one's also positive. This one's negative and this one is also negative. So when the last term is positive, both factors have to be of the same sign, either both positives or both negatives. Well, let's see the other case. But when the last term is negative, as you can see here, the negative 6, here's another negative 6. Both factors of your answer are going to be of different signs. You see this one's positive and this one is negative. And also here, this guy was negative and this one was positive. But notice here, here's going to be the big revelation that you need to see. This one is the positive because the bigger number of the two is positive. You see here, positive. So that means that the factorization has to go, the sign is going to go, this sign goes to the bigger number. Now let's go to this one. You see here we have x minus 3, x plus 2. This one is negative 3. This is negative 3. This is the bigger number. This is bigger than this guy. So the negative is here. So whenever you see a negative here and on the middle, this is going to turn, you got to put the sign in the bigger number. Okay, so that's the pattern there. That's what you have to look for. It's going to help you out a lot. Let's see some more examples. Let's see, for example, here are a lot of examples. Okay, so in this case we have a -2, I'm sorry, a -10, and we have a +3. The result has to be +5 and -2. Why is that? Because when you got to look for all the numbers that when you multiply them give you -10. So it's 5 and 2. 5 times 2 gives you 10. And then you got to put the sign according to this thing. So you have 5 times 2 gives you 10. But since this is negative, as we saw in the previous slide, that means that they have to have different signs. So here we have a +5 and we have a -2. So both of them have to be negatives. Both of them have to be of different signs. Okay, and also when you subtract them, when you do 5 and -2, you get +3. That's why we have this factorization. And what about this one? This is -10, which means that they have to be of different signs. When you multiply them, has to be of different signs. And when you do the addition, it has to be, the bigger number has to be the negative one because this is negative. So you have -5 plus 2 give us -3. That's why this is the factorization for this one. Let's go to this one, to this other trinomial. So this is +10. This is the big clue. This is positive, which means that both of them have to be positive. I'm sorry, both of them have to be of the same sign, either positives, both positives, or both negatives. But the second term is negative, which means that both terms have to be of the same sign, but they have to be negatives in order to get this number here. Okay, so when you add -5 and -2, you get a -7. That's why this is the factorization. Okay, let's go to this one. X squared minus 7x minus 18. We first got to look at the last number. Two numbers that when multiplied give you 18. Of course, it's going to be 9 and 2. You have also 1 times 18. You have also 3 times 6 and so on. But I know it's 9 and 2. Why? Because when you do -9 and +2, it gives us -7. Okay, so that's going to be the answer. Okay, let's go to this last one. We have -20 here. What are the numbers that when you multiply them give you 20? So we know it's 5 and 4, right? Well, it could be 2 and 10 or 1 and 20 and so on. But you know what to do. It's the same as before, but I'm just going to skip all of that and I'm just going to go to the discussion of the signs. It's going to be 5 and 4. 5 times 4 give us 20. And the sign has to go on the bigger number because we have here a negative. Also happened here. We have 9 and 2, the sign goes to the bigger number, which in this case is 9. And over here it's going to be -5 because when you do -5 and +4, when you put them together, it's going to be -1. And when you multiply these two numbers, it gives you -20. Okay, so that's pretty much it. If you have any questions, doubts, or any other comment, you can send me a comment below or an email. Okay, guys, hope you have a great day.